Hello again. This video is me doing a mock-up for what potentially would be a new version of the SlySpy game, which was very popular in the 90s in the arcade machines. Not really sure if any one of you has played it, but it was pretty much sort of a standard action platform game that was, very popular in those penny arcade times. So I start with doing a line art and the silhouette for the main character, which I know is going to be leaning up against the wall, if that would be like a new mechanic that you could turn a platform game into a stealth game. A bit like Bloodthorn, I think it was, from Blizzard. They had this sort of hiding in the shadows technique, which was quite cool. And after I do the line art, I lay down the base foundational colors, and the idea is that I get a palette. The reason why I didn't shade the characters is all I wanted to get from the silhouettes of the characters was the size of the scene, because it's quicker for me to define a palette with the environment than using the character. When I get a really, at least a solid direction for my color palette, then I can start adding in details. In this case, I just added the frame there for the painting, but I also added the trimmings on the wall and now the cracks in between these sort of marble pillars. The reason the marble pillars stand out so much is because they are part of the gameplay. That's kind of my justification for that they are important. They're not just a wall. They're a piece of architecture that you can hide behind. And technically, the soldier on the right is not able to see the character on the left. Now, the shading that I used here for the marble was to have a little bit of bounced light on the left, and I used a bit of dithering, but I really don't like how it turned out, and eventually later on I'll change it. For the curtains here, I wanted them to be kind of velvety, but velvet requires very soft transitions of colors. So I have three colors here: the midtone, the highlight, and the shadow. And I create a fourth color, which is a midtone, a difference halfway between the midtone and the highlight. And that's where I'm going to put my highlights in. I'm going to do small pools of that, see my bright color, and put my highlights in it. And that way it gets softened. It means I'm using more colors, but it also sells the idea that it is more velvet than it is, let's say, silk or satin. I think they turn out fairly okay. Not as velvet as I would like, but they do turn out looking like cloth, which in itself is already quite good in pixel art. For the carpet here, I do a random noise just using one color. I thought about using the filter. This is Photoshop. I thought about using the Photoshop filters, but this way I kind of did it all by hand. Just finishing up. I'm adding these details here, but they're not really even going to be seen because the character is going to be standing there. And I'm basically just setting up the scene, so I have the build palette to start working on it. I did use color balance there to find a new color scheme. That was a quick thing. So I start with lighting the face here on the spy. Now I add a mouth there with teeth for two reasons. One, it's to create the expression of effort, like is concentrated, and the second is to show where the mouth is. And what that does, it shows the direction of the head. Shading suits, if they're really bright or if they're really shiny, is a little more complicated than if they're more like satin beige or softer highlights, because then you can do very soft big areas of one color, like I'm going to do here on the waist. I did have a little bit of the suit hanging, like if it was open, but then I remembered this guy probably has the suit buttoned up because he's all classy in that, so I had to remove that. The soldier here is probably the one that I found to be the most difficult, because uniform cloth doesn't really shine that much. It's not very shiny. It's not as shiny as a suit. So it's basically a very simplistic way of shading, but it doesn't allow you to have, a highlight as you would. So what I'm doing here is the bright shade. Eventually I'm going to tone this down because I think that it creates too much of a contrast, and it looks plastic, and I don't really want that to look plastic. Now for the profile of the face, I used the same skin colors as I used on the spy, but in different layouts. I do a bit of dithering here on the helmet because I'm still sort of playing around with the idea of using that kind of netting that the soldiers used to use on their helmets to stuck things in, like twigs and stuff. And here I'm seeing what they look like in the overall image, and I find that this color is a little too bright, so I tone it down there, just right there. At this point, I decide to make this guy like a generic evil guy, so I'm going for the classical military evil, which is the Nazis, and I kind of do a red armband and then something in there, but I'm not really sure. I didn't have room to make specific symbols, so that was also kind of cool. What I'm doing here is the frame for the painting, and my idea at this point is that the paintings were stolen. This is a house, a mansion, or a palace that was taken by the Nazis, and the paintings were stolen, you know, classic Nazi behavior. But the idea is that as I start doing it, I feel like it's going to be a little too empty, so I decide to paint something in it. But the details that I'm using, it's pretty much just doing a highlight and then doing a shadow underneath that and creating a sense of volume. And then I go in with a really sharp highlight. This is the 1 hour mark. At this point, it was 1 hour work. So adding that really strong highlight, that 1 pixel, is enough to sort of give that an idea of reflection. For the painting here, I just thought I'll do a random classic setting, like a small landscape, and it's a bit arrogant of me to think that in 5 minutes I'm going to be able to do something classic, and that arrogance did not pay off because eventually I ended up with something and went like, yeah, that's not classical, or that's not good at all. It's enough to have a painting. So this is kind of a wanderer going down a pathway, but really it's just so that the painting has something, but it does not look like anything you'd see in a museum. I get rid of the dithering here for the marble pillars, and I still fix the soldier again, because even though I don't want the soldier to look like plastic, I still need him to stand out, and that's kind of what I'm fighting with here. Outside of the window, I'm sort of trying to create a cityscape with, in this case, a street lamp, and I'm going to take that idea into the game and think about doing a candle here on the wall. And I'm going to play around with this, and eventually I'm going to give up on it because I don't think it looks, good enough, nor can I find a decent place to put it in. I still try the columns, but I just give up on it. So outside, I do a few of the buildings with lights, and those are basic 1 pixel or 2 pixel rectangles that I put in there with a with a brighter shade, and those look like windows that are lit. This is just a copy of the character's face and framed into a little card to act as his avatar, and this is a life token, so it has to show how many lives or how many hits the player can take. In this case, for some reason they're 9. I was going to say they're 10, but I've lost one already. And I hand drew the score font because I thought it would be faster, and I realized it's not, so I just use 1 pixel font that I have, which I think is called Edit Undo. And then I create this classical gradient text for the level. This is level 4. I mean, you've spent a lot of money on this. And also I think the time left, there's a lot of games that had this time left thing. And then I add a score in yellow, and that's pretty much it. I'm fixing up a little bit of highlights here on the soldier, on the spy, but that's pretty much it. Hope you guys liked it.